Today's video is sponsored by Into the AM. Well, Stranger Things fans out there, as Vecna would say, it's time. Welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again, breaking down the final 2 episodes of Stranger Things Season 4, Volume 2. Stayed up to 2 a.m. to watch it. Took a little bit of a nap, and here we are discussing it. So excited to be here with you all. But before we get into the discussion, if you enjoy this type of content, well, make sure you're following me on Instagram as well as TikTok. If you're new to the channel and love early movie reviews, TV breakdowns, and live streams, well, come and join the community by subscribing and hitting that notification bell. And if you all enjoyed this spoiler discussion, well, make sure you're giving the video a thumbs up as well as sharing it, but more importantly, sharing your thoughts on these final 2 episodes and the season as a whole. Now, of course, if you haven't seen the 2 episodes, go watch them. It's going to take you about 3 days to do so, but once you finish them, come back and join the conversation. I want to know your pros, your cons. What was the best performance in the final 2 episodes? Best arc, best moment? Did you cry? Did you laugh? Were you disappointed? And of course, share your theories about what you all hope to see in Season 5. Let's have those conversations. So, this is going to be a discussion. This is a spoiler discussion. I'm going to leave time codes in the description because the first half of this video will just be my pros and cons and review on episode 8. Then we're going to really dive deep into episode 9. And then I want to finish the video talking about my predictions. And this will be one of many videos to come on this channel about this final season. So keep an eye out for all that. But we're here to discuss my initial thoughts on the final 2 episodes. Full spoilers ahead. Let's talk about episode 8, which was titled Papa. Now, in this episode, we open with a very interesting opening, a very dark, sinister Vecna and Nancy. She's still in his mind, and he lets her free. Now, we were theorizing for the last few weeks. Is it Eddie on the guitar that releases her? Is it, Steve comes in there? No, he let her free, which at first I'm like, wait. I don't like when villains give the heroes like their whole game plan. I'm like, that's really stupid, Vecna. But now thinking about it, it makes sense because this was all a part of the plan. He knew they're going to want to they're going to want to do their little plan and get everything rolling. And while they're doing that, I'm going to take advantage of that because he needs his 4th victim, which we'll talk about that in episode 9 with Max. So at first I'm like, that is very stupid of you, Vecna, to just be giving her all the information, but he was baiting her. He was giving her information for he can go ahead and make the process happen a little bit quicker. So I did enjoy that. And the vision he gave her came to fruition in episode 9 with Hawkins being destroyed. They talk about the 4 clocks, the 4 deaths. It's all connected. It connects back to season 1. And I know a lot of people put those theories out there. Season 1, when Will fell off the bike, you heard the clock then. We heard it when Hopper went down in season 2 when he went underground. So there's been many seeds being planted throughout this show showing us that this was all part of a plan. Very genius writing there. So while that's going on, our team, Nancy being the G, being the MVP, the ass kicker that she is, she's like, you know what? Let's take the battle to him, right? So I love that she comes up with the plan, go to the gun store, which they come across Jason and all that tension there, which was fantastic. But, all that stuff is happening. Eddie, MVP, we'll talk about him in episode 9. The Michael Myers mask, which was a tie back to Max in season 2 when she went into Halloween with our crew. All that stuff is fantastic. But I do want to mention, I think, an Easter egg and something that will maybe come to fruition in season 5, potentially. There's been a lot of theories out there and conversations about their guidance counselor, right? I believe her name is Miss Kelly, if I'm not mistaken. Lucas brings up, it can't be a coincidence that, all the victims, the 3 victims so far, have been talked to by her and they happen to die. And we see Max like, no, I want to be the bait. He's in my mind. I want to complete this mission. I want to kick his ass. I think Lucas was onto something as far as Miss Kelly. There has to be something still connected to Miss Kelly. Some, relationship with her and Vecna, Henry at one point. Let me know if you all think that this is a throwaway line or if you think Mrs. Kelly's theory will play out in season 5. Let's talk about that in the comments. But as they're getting set up for the war, we see some really and I knew this was kind of the death wish for Eddie, right? Because he's talking to Dustin, never change, be who you are, graduate, all that stuff. I'm like, man, Eddie's gonna die, man. And we'll talk about that here in a second. Even, I love Erica and Lucas. Like, even though, they argue and they fight, she's like, you're my brother and I love you. And then even Rob, again, it was just heartbeat breaking, talking of these conversations, Robin and Steve having that conversation. I'm like, man, who's going to live, who's going to die. And again, we find out in episode 9. But let's transition over to Russia, because there wasn't a lot going on with Russia. Again, this episode was setting up the stage for episode 9. And pretty much in Russia, they discover that they have been collecting the different creatures within the Upside Down. They see that they have the particles of the Mind Flare, which we're going to talk about that at the end. That Mind Flare is still out there in Russia, right? They never destroyed that. But they managed to get out. They go to a plane, and then they, we see that they come up with the idea that we have to go back and break into the prison, which Murray isn't too happy about that. So there wasn't a ton of stuff going on in Russia besides, and I'm referring to episode 8, obviously, besides the reveal of they've been collecting these, creatures and monsters and particles from the Upside Down. And by episode 9, they're still out there. So that was kind of the main thing. But the meat and potatoes of episode 8 was the 11 and everything going on with the California crew. Now, starting off with Will and Mike and Argyle and Jonathan, some of that stuff to me wasn't all that. I'll be honest with you. I said it in a TikTok that I made, as they say, queer baiting, and I totally agree with them. The Mike and Will conversation about how Mike feels like he doesn't, like Elle doesn't need him, she's gonna leave him, he loves her, and this, that, and the other. And we see Will pouring his heart out to his best friend. And Jonathan knows what he was talking about. We'll talk about their conversation in episode 9, but he's pouring his heart out, and he's like making it, he's talking to him as his best friend and putting himself, like Mike, giving him some hype words, letting him know, this is how you should approach the situation. In reality, this is how Will feels about Mike. And the way that the show is kind of handling that moment, to me, Mike's just being so oblivious to it. And nothing against Will. When you feel comfortable with coming out, he's going to do it on his own terms. But I just feel like they're just not handling that plot to me. It's just like, why are you, as they say, they're queer baiting the situation and just not really diving deep into that. I was kind of a little bit disappointed by that situation. We do get the reveal. There is a moment here with this in regards to the painting. We've been speculating, what's the painting? He shows him it's a dragon with the 3 heads, maybe some foreshadowing, but more importantly, he lets Mike know, you're the heart of the team, which at this point, Mike, to me, he went from being the lead of season 1, him and the co-star was him and 11, to now he's really much just a glorified supporting character. Maybe more to come in season 5, but he gives him that. But again, the confessing the love, I just wish that it was just handled a little bit more with more care and just kind of getting to the point, if you ask me. But meanwhile, again, the big thing in episode 8, the big takeaway for me was all the stuff with 11 and Brenner. She gave such a great performance. She faced her demons. She faced her monster, as she calls in this episode. She gains her powers back. She lifts up the Nina Project. Owen, she's like, I want to go to Hawkins. And obviously, Dr. Brenner's like, no, you're not going. You're not ready. Owen's like, you know what? She is ready. This is her choice. We made a deal that she has to come up with it. She's like, yes, I'm ready to go. Very, for my Star Wars fans, Luke Skywalker, Yoda, he wasn't ready yet, and we saw what happened, and it pretty much played out that way in this particular episode. But ultimately, what we see happen is Owen gets taken away. Brenner locks him in a room, and he threatens Elle and saying that, I'm going to kill him if you leave, and we ultimately see her say, well, I'm going to kill you if you don't let me leave. He stabs her in the neck, sedates her, puts the suppressing device that he put on, I believe it was number 2, in the flashback we got in part 1. Ultimately, we see that the Colonel Sullivan comes to the Nina Project. They go down, take out their men. Brenner walks Elle out of the facility. He gets shot, and I'm like, okay, is he dead? Not quite yet. The man's still alive. Meanwhile, we have our California crew coming in with the pizza truck there, and they're going to pick up Elle. But before that, we see Elle take down a helicopter. She kills the men. She crashes the front door. I think Owen's going to be fine. I think we're going to get Owen. I don't think he died in that explosion because we saw the other people walk out of the entrance. But it's in this moment that we have the closing of Brenner and Papa and daughter, potentially. Who knows with Brenner? He might be alive. They might find a way to get the bullet out of him. But she says her goodbye, but before that, he's like, I just want you to know that I did love you. You were my family. Everything I did was to protect you. And he's like, I need you to understand. And this is the moment I thought Millie Bob Brown, she just did fantastic in the delivery when she's just like, bye-bye, Papa. She didn't respond. She didn't take his orders as she's been doing his whole life. She did it her way. She says, you know what? Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Papa, and walks away. I thought that was a great moment for her, and just performance-wise, that was truly the highlight of the 8th episode. All that build-up, some of it worked, some of it didn't, but I will say, Elle, her performance, Millie Bob Brown, was fantastic, and that's the first death, potentially. Again, we don't know. Brenner, we always think he died in season 1. He came back. Who knows if somehow it missed an artery, missed his heart, and he'll be back in season 5. But so far, that's death number 1. But we end the episode with 11 telling them that they need to go back to Hawkins, and obviously they don't have time to do so. We cut to our team in the RV getting ready for war, and it's pretty exciting the way that they set that up with it was Erica, Max, and Lucas in front of the Creel house. Meanwhile, our team is setting up for their plan. So overall, the 8th episode was a good setup episode. Again, the California stuff is a little bit of lag. There wasn't a lot going on in Russia besides the reveal of the mind flare and the particles being there. But again, what I took away from this 8th episode, and I applaud the 8th episode, letting Elle in her chapter, potentially with Brenner. Now, we got a 2.5 hour episode to break down, so I'm going to really try to get into the meat and potatoes here and try to structure it with the stuff that worked and didn't work. Let's get into it. And before we do so, actually, I want to give a word to the sponsor in this video, Into the AM. Today's video is sponsored by Into the AM. Into the AM is a clothing company with a variety of amazing products such as t-shirts, hoodies, jackets, shorts and underwear, headwear, and much more. Their t-shirts have unique designs, they're incredibly soft and extremely comfortable, and they're made to last. But the best part is, you can get 10% off by using my discount code MovieFiles when you're selecting your new gear, which you can find that code in the description below. So shout out to Into the AM. If you all want that discount, make sure you click the link in the description of this video. I love their shirts, and I'm so glad they're sponsoring this video. But let's get back into it. Episode 9. Let's start off with Russia, right? So Yuri, he, compromises the helicopter. Him and Enzo, he eventually, we don't see it as off screen, but Enzo eventually convinces him to, put the pieces to the helicopter back. Let's go ahead and save them while they break back into the prison. We don't know how they end. We assume they're in America. They might have stayed in Russia because we don't know what happens with Enzo and Yuri, but I'm assuming that they're going to be a part of our team come season 5. I assume that. Could be wrong. But while all that's going on, Joyce and Hopper have a bit of a moment, intimate moment that gets cut off when they call the phone. They break into the prison. Again, at this point, the prison has been compromised. The demons are running around. People are dead. There's dead bodies everywhere. The Demogorgons have become them, and whatever the case may be. And ultimately, what we see is the flamethrower coming in, and I can't deny it. The moment when Hopper picked up that Excalibur sword and sliced the Demogorgon's head off was epic. That was epic. And obviously I'm jumping ahead because the way they cut that was when everything was breaking down in the final battle with Vecna. But I just want to applaud. I do ultimately like how they wrapped up the Russia plot, because if you watch my review of season 1, or I should say part 1, it was a little bit convoluted. It was kind of lacking. It was a little bit of a filler. But when we start to get Hopper's story, him and his daughter, him feeling like he's death, him feeling like every time he gets someone in his life, they're taken away, I liked how they wrapped that up, especially when we talk about the ending with the reunion at the end there. But ultimately, I did like the Russia storyline, especially that sword to the head was pretty awesome. Let me know how you all feel about that. But let's pivot over to California. Again, I think, honestly, that's the weakest plot of this entire season. But we get the title of the episode, the piggyback idea that Elle wants to go into the tub with the salt. She's going to connect herself into Max's mind, which she ultimately decides to do so. And she's going through these memories within the memory. And that stuff was cool, but it felt like it was dragging on, right? I'm going to say it now. 2.5 hours, I don't think we needed all of that. Like, it was very overwhelming, if I'm being honest with you all, because it was multiple points within this episode. I'm like, hey, you couldn't have ended it here and maybe gave us another episode. You could have ended it here, because it was literally a point in the episode where I thought it ended, but it was like another hour left. So I thought it was too bloated. And it was moments like this, like obviously they have to set up the Mike and Elle. They have the conversation. Speaking of conversation, we see the brothers, Will and Jonathan, yet again. Jonathan knows, right? He knows his brother has feelings for Mike. He says it without saying it, that we need to talk more and we need to talk about stuff that matters, right? I like that moment. Again, it just felt a little bit hollow because I don't know what the show's doing for Will. And again, we're anticipating, expecting more for Will, more for Mike, hell, more for Jonathan. That character right now is just there just to be there, right? But hopefully, fingers crossed, they give us something with all those characters. But again, the main thing with California is that Elle is now going into Max's memory. And again, the whole kind of cool thing about this finale, Russia is doing their thing, destroying the hive to help the kids. Meanwhile, Californian crew is trying to do that to protect Max. So they're all obviously in separate places, but they're trying to accomplish the same thing. So that was kind of a cool setup. And we know with Stranger Things, they like to separate our crew just so they can all ultimately work together at the end. So that was pretty cool. But let's talk about the Hawkins stuff, the massacres, the deaths, or the so-called deaths that they alluded to, 5 deaths. We'll talk about that here in a second, but let's get into it. Game plan. Nancy sets up the plan. They got the different phases of how they're going to work it out. While we have them, the whole plan is, Nancy, Robin, and Steve are in the Upside Down. Erica, Max, Lucas, are going to do their thing, and also Eddie, we'll talk about him. Dustin are in the Upside Down too, and they have this whole thing set up. We have the moment between Steve and Nancy, him talking about the family he wants to go on the trip with the RV. That was that was a nice moment. I still think it's a little bit forced at this point as far as the Steve having to find love, and that love being in the form of Nancy, and then Nancy and Jonathan on the rocks. I feel like they're trying to force that. I'm not liking that so far, but again, I love Steve, and I'm glad they kept him alive. I'll just say that. While all that's happening, we get another intimate moment between Lucas and Max, the Friday night date. And whenever you say date, going back to season 3 with Hopper and Joyce, that date didn't come true, but it ultimately did, and sort of happened that way with Max and Lucas. But I thought that moment was really nice. But MVPs. Let's talk about Max, and let's talk about Lucas. She turns the music off. She has her monologue with Vecna talking about that she did want Billy to die. She wanted him to die in a car crash. She wanted to, after that happened with season 3, him dying, she wanted to die. She wanted to feel the pain. Great moment. Great monologue. Performance by Sadie Sink. Fantastic. Thank you for giving Lucas, who is one of my favorite characters. He was kind of sidelined in season 2 and 3, right? Season 1, he was fantastic. He was my favorite character in season 1, if I'm being honest with you. Lucas, give this man, Caleb, his flowers. When he turned to Vecna and was, saying all those evil things, and obviously while that's going on, and the way he delivered that, the look, the eyes, while that's going on, our reality Lucas goes against Jason, and the fight, the back and forth, him fighting for Max while all that stuff is going on when she's fighting Vecna. Those two stole this episode to me, like top to bottom. There's some great moments, like I mentioned, the sword fighting. We're going to talk about Eddie's sacrifice and him graduating to be a hero. But man, Max and Lucas absolutely solidified themselves as MVPs for me personally. Let me know how you all felt about all that. But while that's going on, we got our crew in the Upside Down while Jason's, messing up the situation. That dude, why are you going to break a little girl's arm? The douchebags of all douchebags. And Jason got his. He did die. So if I'm going back to my kill count, Brenner died, Jason died, and we'll talk about the others here. But while they're fighting, we're in the Upside Down. Unfortunately, Eddie and Dustin, they're in the RV. The bats get into the RV. He starts to distract. He's like, he has Dustin go back into the reality. He cuts off the sheet. Ultimately Dustin gets back in, but he's outside fighting the bats, and he's starting to run. Kate Bush, everyone's running, but he's like, you know what? Not today. I'm going to be the hero that I said I wasn't to Steve early in the episode. I'm going to be that hero. He fights off the bats as long as he can, which ultimately leads to him dying. He's graduated, right? He graduated from being the runaway, scared individual to being the hero. He sacrificed himself, man. The distraction, and also I can't leave out the guitar. The shredding of the guitar, it was so awesome. But shout out to Eddie Munson, man. Shout out to the actor that played him, Joseph Quinn, I think is his name. Fantastic job. Stranger Things always does this to us. Out of the Barbs of the world, the Bobs of the world, the Billies of the world, this was the tough one for me because we didn't spend that much time with Barb. R.I.P. to Barb, justice for Barb. We all know that, right? We spent a lot of time with Bob. Bob was that got to me, right? I love that moment in season 2. I thought it was very much earned, but this is the one. This is the one that really got to me as far as like feeling them. I cried. I cried because Dustin was crying. What a great crying scene for him. Him crying and tearing up and when kids are crying when they see something sad, it got to me. I cried at that moment. That was a very emotional moment for me. But that was one of 2 in this episode. But again, I want to take the moment. Joseph Quinn, shout out to you. Eddie Munson, MVP, Rookie of the Year, whatever you want to call it. Give that man his roses. He was fantastic. So that was great. But then they went ahead and made me cry again. Vecna gets Max. You know, we got Elle and her memories. She's seeing her as a little kid and all that stuff. She's seeing what's going on and just the memories being destroyed by Vecna. Vecna gets her. They fight. Let me rewind a little bit. Elle saves Max initially. She fights Vecna. I'm like, dude, Vecna's weak as hell, bro. I thought you were supposed to be this big bad, number one. But he inevitably he gets his stuff. He fights Elle. He manages to. I'm gonna make you watch, and gets Max and starts it. And dude, broke her arms, broke her legs. Elle's watching this. Mike being the Will pumping him up, telling him you need to be the hero. You need to save her. Let her know to fight. She ultimately fights. She pushes Vecna back. She gets her revenge or whatnot. But Max. Before we get to Max. She gets her revenge. Vecna's like, you thought you won. You've actually lost. I'm trying to do my best Vecna voice here, and they did lose. All of Hawkins is becoming the Upside Down, which we'll talk about the cliffhanger. But we see the destruction that was, the vision that Nancy has does come to place because, unfortunately, technically, Max dies. We see her die, and again, man, whenever people cry and they give a good cry, it kind of like it evokes me to cry, and again goes back to Caleb's performance when he's crying like, Max, come on, Max, like don't do this, and she slowly but surely dies. She does officially die. So again, kill count: Brenner, Jason dies. We got Eddie that died, and now Max dies. But then we get the moment where we hear her say the monologue. We make our own rules to Elle, and OPL touches her, and we in, right? Essentially, we see that she gives her back life. So she did technically die, but she brought her back to life. She died for a minute, I think Lucas said, because we cut to that Friday night date. He's reading her the book. She's in a coma. They don't know if she's going to come in, come out. I'm pretty sure she's going to come back because why not? If you're going to bring her, like if you're not going to kill the character at that moment, you're going to bring them back. They're not going to just be in a coma all of season 5. I do imagine she's going to be in a cast or whatnot, but we're going to get Max come season 5. I do guarantee that if I put a bold prediction out there. We see the ramifications. The media right now in Hawkins is saying it was an earthquake, and they blame it on this stupid ass town. Which, number one, shout out to all the people that left Hawkins. Like, yes, that's the best plan. Leave goddamn Hawkins. It's cursed. They leave Hawkins. The media says it's the Hellfire Club. That the satanic rituals brought this hurricane or whatever. Meanwhile, we see that, 2 days later, or whatever the case may be, 22 dead. The Duffers said we're going to get a body count. 22 people did die in this catastrophic incident, and hundreds were injured. We have the moment where Dustin tells, Mr. Munson about Eddie being a hero. I love that moment there, but, I'm not going to lie. Dustin limping was a little bit too overacting to me. Small little nitpick. But we wrap up with, Vicky talking to Robin and Steve seeing that, alluding that they might get into a relationship. We see that Mike has the conversation with Will. Will, all of a sudden now is, Will from season 2. He can feel Vecna. He's hurt. He's not dead, but he's hurt. He wants revenge. He's coming back. While all that's happening, we're outside and we cut to the snow, but it's really ash. And we see the cliffhanger. Our crew goes out to the field. Before I get to that, shout out to the amazing, incredible reunion between father and daughter. I'm talking about Elle and Hopper. I got emotional seeing that moment, and she said, I left the door open for you. That was a good moment. The emotions were there. The emotions paid off. Again, it was a little bit too long for my liking, but it did have some great payoffs, and that was one of them. But we end on the cliffhanger. The Upside Down is transforming, consuming, becoming Hawkins. Season 5. Let's talk about predictions before I give you all my review. I think Season 5 will give us the Duffers have been referring to Season 5 will be a season that's going to explore the Upside Down. And I know why now, because we're going to get it in our reality, which means the characters are going to have to learn their environment, see the weaknesses, figure out a way to defeat Vecna, because that was what Will told Mike. We have to kill him. So that will be the mission at hand. I don't even want to think about deaths and who's going to live, who's going to die. We'll make more videos in the future about that. But that is Season 5. Upside Down has now consumed, has taken over, has become Hawkins. So that is going to bring all of our characters back. Does that mean Callie's out there? Are we going to get more reveals about the, Miss Kelly being connected to Vecna? The theory of Vecna maybe being Elle's dad is something that can be talked to. Are we going to get Elle talking to her mom? Is she going to snap out of her, psychosis and everything she's got going on? It's a lot, and I'm really excited for it. Unfortunately, we probably have to wait 2 years before season 5, but I'm here for it. And just going back to my review of episode 9. I mentioned it. I thought it was a little bit too long in the tooth. I think they should have cut it into one more episode. Will stuff to me wasn't all that great. It was kind of rushed and wasn't handled that well. Same goes with Jonathan. I don't know what they're doing with the character when he lies to Nancy about the college situation. We'll see what this love triangle goes with Steve. We'll see. Overall, like I said, I was underwhelmed when I first watched it. I'm going to rewatch it again. I'm going to have a live discussion. I'm going to have more videos about this show. But I would say right now, collectively speaking, I love this season. It stumbled to end, but it did hit the emotional beats. I did get emotional when we lost Eddie, when we lost Max. She came back. I'm satisfied. Little bit disappointed in some areas, but I am still a happy Stranger Things fan. And again, I want to know your thoughts. I'm going to make more videos. Like I said, I'm still thinking about some things. There's a lot more theories, a lot of things I want to bring to the table as far as discussions go. But overall, I have to say, as a fan, I'm pretty satisfied. Underwhelmed at first, but the more I thought about it, took a good little nap. I'm pretty happy with it. But let me know your thoughts, pros, cons, thoughts, theories, predictions, favorite moments, least favorite moments, satisfied, not satisfied, disappointed. Let's talk about it again. Follow me on TikTok. I'm going to have some videos I'm dropping. I'm going to be putting it on YouTube. We're going to have a live discussion hopefully in the next coming days. Some more videos coming, so keep an eye out for all of that. Thank you for watching this review. Again, thank you to the sponsor, Into the AM. Before you leave, make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe. Follow me on all my other social media accounts, but more importantly, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. That way you don't miss any of my future reviews. Hope you're staying safe. Hope you enjoyed this breakdown. Hope you're having a great holiday weekend. We'll catch you all on the next breakdown.